And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're delighted to welcome you to the annual Save the Rhino event for World Rhino Day, where we celebrate rhinos and share the latest rhino news from around the world. Of course, as you will all know, World Rhino Day is actually the 22nd of September, but we're doing a bit of a sneak preview 3 days early this year as it falls on a Sunday. So thanks very much to all of you joining us online. We've had over 200 people sign up so far from all around the world, from Thailand to Botswana to Australia to the US. So it's fabulous to have so much interest all the way around the world for rhinos. We also have speakers joining us from different rhino range states, dialing in from Indonesia and also from South Africa. And we have very special guests here with us in the office tonight from London, and also a live speaker who'll be joining me here in the office to talk about his work in Namibia. As well as learning the latest news about rhinos, we'll be hearing some special updates from our project, the activities that are happening in the field that your donations help us support. So thank you so much for that. This year, we're going to be focusing primarily on Indonesia, where the two most critically endangered rhino species are the Javan and Sumatran rhinos. We've got some incredible footage showing some of the latest exciting news from those parts, but also some of the challenging stories and situations that are happening there. So important to be getting that message out for rhinos in 2024. The flow of the evening will be an update from Indonesia first online, then from South Africa on African rhinos. Then we'll have a case study here in the office, a bit of a panel discussion with our speakers, and then a chance for you online and here in the office to ask us your questions. So please drop those into the YouTube chat live as we go. So first up, we're going to jump to Indonesia, where Inov Sectionov, who's the Indonesian Program Director for the International Rhino Foundation, will be telling us about his work. So Inov's been working in rhino conservation in Indonesia for over 20 years now. He's an Indonesian national. He completed his Bachelor of Forestry from the Agricultural University of Bogor, Indonesia. He did his Masters of Conservation Biology at the University of Queensland in Australia. He's been working for the International Rhino Foundation since 2006. He's researched Javan rhinos in Ujung Kulon, including the impact of the invasion of Orenga palm on their habitat. He's also been involved in studies with the Sumatran rhino, with the Rhino Protection Unit and the Sumatran Rhino Sanctuary as part of his role with Rhino Foundation of Indonesia. He's a member of the IUCN Asian Rhino Specialist Group and on their steering committee and part of their international meetings and producing their papers and journals. So Inov, it's an absolute honor and a pleasure to have you here with us this evening, sharing this incredibly important news from Indonesia. I will hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Joe. And then thank you for having me. And then thank you for the Save the Rhino to invite me. And then we work together. And then I would like to inform to all of you regarding of the ASEAN Rhinos update. I would like to start where I'm working with the Indonesian rhino. This is Indonesia, that as the archipelago country that we have the 17,000 island, and then we have two kind of species rhino, Sumatran rhino and then Javan rhino. From the 5 species that we have around the world, the situation of the Javan and Sumatran rhino probably that is a very critical compared with the other rhino. Next, please. This is a Javan rhino, Rhinoceros sondaicus. This population not more than 50 individual. The last census 2021, the population was to 76 individual. And then probably you have heard that early this year, we heard that Indonesian police mentioned that 26 of Javan rhino was being killed. Next, please. Sumatran rhino is the smallest rhino that we have right now. There's population not more than 50 individual or 35 or 34 until 47 individual. And then only in Sumatra, and then very small population in Borneo. And then so far, only 2 individuals that we can identify in Borneo. Next, please. Here the current distribution of the Sumatran rhino that we have, only in Waikambas National Park, looser ecosystem in northern Sumatra, and then East Kalimantan. Meanwhile, the Javan rhino is only in the corner of the Javan Island. Next, please. As we know, that is the primary threat for the Sumatran and Javan rhino, which is the human encroachment. As you know, that we have more than 280 million people in Indonesia, the 4th biggest country with the population, and then for sure they need the land. And then also the illegal logging, poaching, this is still the biggest threat for us, degradation of habitat, and then for sure the infrastructure development. This is the primary threat that we face for the Sumatran and Javan rhino, then also for the other big mammal in Indonesia. Next, please. I would like to start with the Javan rhino update. Next, please. Probably all of you heard as a poacher claim to have killed 1/3 of all Javan rhino. This is based on the Indonesia police, when the Indonesian police have arrested the main poacher for the Javan rhino, and then from the trial court, and then the judge have been give the statement for the Javan rhino poacher get 12 years in the record sentence for wildlife crime in Indonesia. It is a record for the illegal wildlife trade that we can send to the jail. Based on the previous law in Indonesia, the highest maximum the people go to the jail for the illegal wildlife trade at only 5 years. But for the Javan rhino poachers gets the 12 years. Next, please. And then we also, the government of Indonesia and the team, and working together with the police and then prosecutor, that the middleman also was sentenced to 4 years or 6 months in the jail, and then some fine that they have to pay. Meanwhile, the buyer is still in the process. And then interestingly, the destination plus the police confirmed that the 2 Chinese national involved of this trading, and then from the confession of the middleman that we have sent for years, 6 months to the jail, mentioned that 6 or more horn go to the China. This is interestingly that as we know that the Vietnamese more demand in the last decade from Vietnam, but now that the Chinese again has a demand for the horn of rhino. Next, please. To anticipate this situation, that the government of Indonesia, the Ujung Kulon National Park, tried to investigate and then try to collect the traditional gun, and then surprisingly that we just realized that there was more than 400 guns collected surrounding of the Ujung Kulon National Park. As you know that in Indonesia, there's only police and army that have the permit to have the gun. So that this is all the illegal guns that our government can collect it. from the surrounding of the Ujung Kulon National Park. Next, please. And then the short term, the strategy right now since February that Ujung Kulon National Park tried to use the IPS, the Integrated Protection System, by fully protected area. So all the location and the corner of the Java Island now closed, and then we put the real-time camera, mobile patrol team, and then we also use the marine patrol because we realized that the poaching and the illegal activity entering the Ujung Kulon National Park from the coastline. So since February 2004, by closing all this location from the 112 camera trap that we put within the national park, we can see the reduce of the illegal activity within the Ujung Kulon National Park, and then hopefully that can make the suitable and then what's it called comfortable for the Javan rhino on their habitat. Surprisingly, next please, I would like to show the video. This, and then there's a coincidence or not, this probably you can see that Indonesian government just announced that the 4 Javan rhino, actually 5 actually right now, that the capture in Ujung Kulon National Park. So this is from the 17th May that the Minister Forestry and Environment and Forestry Indonesia has given the name each of the calf of the rhino that captured in Ujung Kulon National Park. This is 3 video. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah, this is the new one that we have that just announced by government. This, I think this is 5 days ago. His name Iris, and then we assume that this a baby rhino less than 1 month old. And next, please. Yep. And then they got the certificate. Next, please. And then this is the other the 5th the baby rhino, Javan rhino. That's interestingly because we thought that probably by losing the male one, the sex ratio in Ujung Kulon National Park, the sex ratio is becoming normal. Before that more male than female. Right now, this is 1 female, 1 male, that the 4 of 3 female, something like that one. And then from the scientific point of view, the sex ratio is becoming normal. But they're still debating regarding of this one. Next, please. We move to the Sumatran rhino. The situation in the Sumatran rhino is not better than Javan rhino, but we have the Sumatran rhino sanctuary, the semi-wild research and breeding facility in Waikambas National Park. We start this facility in 1996 with only 2 rhino, and nowadays, next please, we have 10 Sumatran rhino right now that since 2012 until now, until 2023, we have been produced 5 of the Sumatran rhino in the captive breeding by the natural breeding and that facility. Next, please. I would like to show you this video when we have this rhino born, the Sumatran rhino born at the captivity at the time. This is the probably 4 hours after this baby delivery at the sanctuary. Hairy rhino, that very hairy. Next, please. Yeah, and then beside in Waikambas National Park that we have the Sumatran Rhino Sanctuary, we still have a good population of the Sumatran rhino in the northern Sumatra in the Loser ecosystem. We still can find the what you call the egg feeding, the wallow, and then the footprint, the fresh footprint that our team can find during the patrol. And then we also set up several camera traps at the location. I just want to inform you that the total location of the Sumatran, the habitat Sumatran rhino in northern Sumatra, more than 400,000 hectares. Next, please. And then from that location, that only 60,000 hectares that we can cover to put the video. And then this is one of the good video from the video trap of the Sumatran rhino that we found the last year. It's a very healthy rhino near the wallow. Next, please. So beside the protection of breeding, we also try to make a program reforestation for the rhinos, because for the Sumatran rhino sanctuary, eventually we will release them to their habitat, and then we prepare some of the location for the restoration. This is from the drone that we, when we start 2020, that still it was the grazing area. Next, please. This is a picture that, yeah, this is when we started 2020 that we built the base camp in the early 2020, and then last month ago we flew the drone again to see the growing of the plantation, the seedling that we planted this 2020. Next, please. Probably gonna be clear by this video from the 2020 2024. This is a video, the start 2020. And then this is 2024, last month. So reforest, and then this habitat can be ready to be the next home for the Sumatran rhino from the Sumatran Rhino Sanctuary. Next, please. Restoration program that we initiated with the Waikambas National Park, and then local people as well, and then the local NGO, Indonesian Rhino Initiative. We hire many people work with the restoration, mostly the men working with us. Meanwhile, we also try to empowering the women working with us. And then we work closely with the farmer to find the alternative livelihood, because we realize that conservation cannot work lonely, cannot work without support from the community. In Ujung Kulon National Park, the woman farmer group tried to make that we call eco printing. They use the what you call the garbage of from the falling the leaf to make a good product of the eco printing. Next, please. Yes, fewer than 100 Sumatran rhino and Javan rhino left in the world. International Rhino Foundation, Sumatran Save the Rhino International, then our partner, and then also with the government of Indonesia, we try to implementing a comprehensive, unified approach to avoid extinction and recover the species. This is the last chance for us to save this species. And then for the Sumatran rhino, this is the last genus. Not by protecting Sumatran rhino, we are not only protecting the species, but only protecting the last genus of this creature. Next, please. On behalf of my colleagues from the India and Nepal, I would like to give you a little bit information about the greater one-horned rhino. The population of the greater one-horned rhino right now is so incredible that I think there's one of the successful story of the rhino conservation world in the world, that they can move the position, the status of the species from endangered, from critically endangered now the position of the critic as the vulnerable status of the IUCN. The population right now is the 4,018 individual. Next, please. And then this is the location of this habitat of the greater one-horned rhino in the northern India. For example, in the Dudua National Park, from the Orang National Park, Manas National Park, and for sure the biggest population of this greater one-horned rhino in Kaziranga National Park. Next, please. And then this is the location that we see how the connected of this national park and then wildlife reserve in the northern India that now contain of this of the greater one-horned rhino. How was the successful of the translocation of the greater one-horned rhino from, for example, from Kaziranga to Pobitora and then to Manas National Park. And recently some of location that translocation of the greater horned rhino automatically translocate by each rhino from one national park to another national park. From the Orang National Park to Brachapuri and then Lakohua, something like that. But this is very amazing kind of the example successful of the rhino conservation in the world. Next, please. The successful of the Greater One-Horned Rhino program also because of the strengthening local livelihood to garner support toward the rhino conservation from the communities. We also all realize that conservation cannot work without the support from the communities. India is one of the good examples how they can show a good of the program that connecting between the wildlife, the rhino, and then people in that country. Next, please. And then for sure, they also have the good program of the habitat restoration. For example, in Assam, how they control the invasive species to make of the suitable habitat for the greater one rhino in that location. I think that's it, the information update from Asian Rhino from this event. Next, please. Just want to say thank you for the Save the Rhino. Thank you for all of your support. And then I would like to say happy World Rhino Day. This is our chance together to protect the Sumatran Javan rhino and then greater one rhino for the future. Thank you. Back to you, Jill.
Thank you so much, Inov. That was a fantastic presentation. Really inspiring to hear there at the end about the recovery of the greater one-horned rhino. I think important to see that in context against the situation in Indonesia. Obviously just incredibly concerning to hear about those losses of the Javan rhino population. Positive that the law enforcement responses have been so strong and that there are so many births. That was just quite remarkable footage, but still so much to be done. And I'm sure we'll have lots of questions for you around that at the end. Coming up next, we will hear our update from Africa from Dr. Sam Ferreira. Sam is the scientific officer of the African Rhino Specialist Group of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature Species Survival Commission. Sam's also the large mammal ecologist for South African national parks based in Kruger, as well as an adjunct professor at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology in Cape Town and a research associate at Northwest University. And Sam's scientific work around rhinos spans many disciplines. He's looked at the role of poaching for rhino horn and its impacts on rhino population dynamics, as well as assessing rhino biology, the influences of density-dependent factors and other factors around environmental effects and density rates. He's looked at optimal anti-poaching approaches around crime network disruption and how to address the motivation for poaching, along with research looking at communications framing and the development of broader economic opportunities around rhinos. So we're very excited and honored to have Sam here with us this evening, sharing with us some brand new information on the numbers and the situation of black and white rhinos in Africa. Over to you, Sam.
Thank you, Joe, and good evening, everybody. It is indeed a privilege to share with you some of the African news. You know, some of them is good and some of them is not so good, but I think that's part of the important bit of sharing these things. Next slide, please. What I think is probably very useful is that the African Rhino Specialist Group is comprising of about 50 odd members of various specialists in science, in management, and a range of aspects, you know. But I think the common view is really about how do we achieve thriving wild African rhinos that are valued by people. And yes, a lot of that is based on the evidence that we actually need to have around. And I think I'm going to share some of this information with you this evening. Next slide. Now, most people are often very concerned about the number of dead rhinos. And on this slide, you actually see a summary of all the countries and what has happened since 2006. I think that bottom line is the important one. And certainly in 2015 was when the peak of the absolute number of rhinos poached at that time was about 1,300. And that has sort of dropped off. Sadly, unfortunately, we have a slight increase in the number of rhinos poached from 2022 to 2023, and the majority of that is happening still in South Africa, and of course with Namibia. And then South Africa has also got the place that has, of course, got the most number of rhinos. Next slide. So in this context, there's probably 4 critical insights that certainly the specialist group has identified. And I think one of the most important ones is some poaching thresholds. There tend to be a perception amongst people if you have any kind of poaching, the rhinos is going to collapse. When you look at that top graph there, that is actually the poaching rate. So this is the percentage of the rhinos of the entire continent that were poached in a particular year. And you can see there from 2020 onwards, we've had, and 2020 was, of course, the COVID year. That was the lowest poaching that we have recorded, the poaching rate. We've had more or less a stabilization, and that's sitting at around about 2.5%. What is important in the bottom graph is that if you have this is a plot of the poaching, the population growth rate against the poaching rate. So at about 3.5% poaching of the population a year, you will have the population just maintaining itself. So anything more than that will have the population decline, and anything below that will have the population increase. So given that we've had for the last 3 years or 4 years, we've had about 2.5% poaching, we should expect that the African rhino numbers are actually increasing. And now at the moment, this is a summary of all rhinos. It's not split up between populations or different species, for example. The second, next slide, please. The second insight is really that size seemed to matter a great deal, and that big places like Kruger National Park and even Etosha do have a particular big challenge. So here's an example of some work in 2020, but I think the principles relate, is that in these big places like Kruger, which are the size of Israel, it's really difficult getting cost-efficient access controls. You know who's who in the park. Cost-efficient situational awareness and even maintaining your staff integrity is quite challenging. And then the other big thing is, imagine if I have to monitor at the individual level. In Inov has really highlighted how wonderful data the one gets when you do that. But it becomes very difficult when I've got 2,000 rhinos. And I think this is what that aspect is, that size matters mean for us, etc. So this has got some implications how one can think a bit about it. Next slide. The third insight was really about it's really hard maintaining rhinos if the surrounding area around you is not safe. And certainly in Southern Africa, there was a publication last year on the role of corruption in the general region and how it makes it really tough to maintain that, to actually get in control of any rhino crimes if you haven't got a regional safety and security sorted out in the first place. And that relates to actually even how people are feeling. It's not even just about wildlife. Next slide, please. And the last insight, the fourth one, was something that I did share with the team last year. And this is this really important role of partnerships. And we've seen across all four of the extant African rhino species, there is a functioning extinct northern white rhino. There's only 2 individuals of them left. But when you look at that graph, the black bars are growth rates or performance of the population when you are only state or a single entity managing it, whereas all those empty bars are actually what happens when I've got partnerships. And invariably, you are doing better if you are working together. And I think that's a really, really important one. And I think a little bit later after me, Simson will talk a little bit about that and the experiences that we have with partnerships. Next slide, please. So apart from those 4 insights, there are some really important changes happening, and certainly the changing societal expectations in Africa. And about 2 years ago, I think the African Protected Areas Congress, the various African peoples there really made some strong calls. And this hinged on how one promote inclusive and equitable governance. That picture that you see there is actually, I think, one of Simson's people who are doing something. And again, it's about how you work together. The focus is really people-centered as can be effective and in reaching equitable conservation. In other words, people that are really affected should be taking part in the decision-making that is happening around rhinos, particularly if rhinos are busy affecting their livelihoods. A very important one about mobilizing the economic value of these protected areas and how do you finance that, and then how protected areas can actually serve as natural solution to some of the socio-ecological crises. You just think a little bit about the climate change challenges that so many people across Africa will experience. And I think this is a realization that the context of how rhinos are persisting in Africa has changed quite substantially, and what the expectations is that Africans will have of those. Next slide, please. So in that context, there's probably 4 critical challenges that arise in 2024. I think the one that is probably a little bit more in the media was this the John Hume rhinos, or the famous, let's call it the famous John Hume rhinos, the 2,000 southern white rhinos that were actually in semi-wild conditions at a place called the Platinum Rhino. That was purchased by African Parks and now call that locality the farm. And that is, how do you take these rhinos back into the wild, into free-ranging conditions when they have actually grown up, or they have been fed, or been a lot of the constraints that they would normally experience has been minimized for them. And then the other really big realization is that about 20% of the eastern black rhinos in the world are actually sitting in zoos. And in fact, there are a number of some of the genetic variants that are sitting only in zoos. So there's some challenges about how do I bring animals from captive situations or approaches back into wild situations, and there will definitely be some new lessons that we'll have to learn. The second one was around adaptive resilience to this global environmental change driver. So climate is changing, and certainly rhinos are going to be experiencing those. And often we are in situations where we've had something that's gone extinct, like, for example, the Western black rhino, but we're lucky that we have got some subspecies that can actually act as ecological equivalents, and we can do things about it. But there are certainly some very big expectations that one may even have to create novel ecosystems or novel contributions of rhinos as part of your response to these environmental global change drivers like climate change. So these are definitely new things that the African rhinos are facing. There are some pragmatic genetic considerations. So there's variable genetic framings, and this can have some very important implications for historical distribution. So imagine if the distribution or the subspecies statuses are changing, and all of a sudden I've got a couple of extra more subspecies based on new genetic understandings. But now I got to think very carefully, how do I move or reintroduce animals across that space? So this is an area that the specialist group is definitely needing to consider quite strongly and advising. And then probably the most significant one is that no matter what we think about all these above, rhino habitat is not continuous. They are fragmented, and suitable habitats are in patches across the rhino range, the historical range, etc. But even more important is that quite often we've got very suitable rhino habitat, but we don't necessarily have that safe. It costs a lot of money or a lot of investment to make the rhino habitat itself safe, even though the rhino habitat is very, very good. I think those are the key critical challenges and opportunities that has arisen. Next slide, please. So with this background, what are the live rhinos doing? And I think this is an important update. And certainly there are some good and some concerning news. So overall, the African rhinos, both black and white rhinos, has actually together has increased by about 2.4% from last year. So that's good. That's very nice. Unfortunately, the black rhinos has actually slightly decreased, and the white rhinos has actually done but better. And I think this is an important realization that we're going to have very different responses for a variety of reasons. The black rhino decline are largely associated with what was happening in some focal areas in South Africa, and certainly also in some focal areas in Namibia. But overall, there is a general sense of optimism about what is happening in Africa with the various African rhinos. And as you can see, there's quite a lot of them. Note that we've also been recording what is present in zoos, and that is because in future the zoos may actually play an important role if we start integrating zoo populations into wild populations, etc. So we've highlighted some of those challenges and opportunities. And next slide. So, Joe, I'm going to leave the audience and the colleagues here with this final message. Yes, we have got some challenges, but certainly from last year to this year in Africa, there are now more rhinos, despite the poaching that has happened. And the opportunities and how we can improve things better are certainly fairly wide. I think some of our biggest challenges is how do we get out of our own comfort zones and start doing additional things to the wonderful work that the colleagues across many range states has been doing in the last year. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much, Sam. Fascinating update there. Huge amount of information to try and absorb and digest and get our heads around in terms of African rhinos, the different species and the different numbers. I'm sure we'll be coming back to you with more questions at the end. But certainly for me, a very clear message from you and also from Inov about the need to be involving local people directly in rhino conservation activities and decisions. And this evening, we're very lucky to have Simson Uri-Khob here with us this evening in the office. Simson is CEO of Save the Rhino Trust in Namibia and received the Prince William Award for Conservation in Africa. He's laughing at my pronunciation, but I tried my best. More than 30 years ago, in July 1991, Simson started work at Save the Rhino Trust in Namibia. And today, having worked in numerous roles across the organization, he's built up incredible rhino conservation knowledge. He's worked in a range of different positions, and he now leads a team of more than 50 staff and 70 community rhino rangers from 13 different conservancies, which span an area of 25,000 kilometers across northwestern Namibia. When Simson joined, Namibia's black rhino population was just back from the brink of almost complete decimation after a terrible drought and a surge of poaching in the 70s and 80s. Today, rhino numbers have increased and the conservancies have generated more than $10 million in cash income and other benefits. So we're delighted for Simson to join us this evening and to tell us about his work in some more detail. Welcome, Simson.
Good evening, everybody. As Joe have already introduced me, I don't really need to introduce myself, except for maybe make a correction on my surname. She was 90% right, but it's Uri-Khob. But she will get there, I know. As you can see, conservation, rhino conservation in Namibia actually start under the tree. And if it's under the tree, and if you see all these people, then you know it's in the field where the rhinos are, and this is the people that live with the rhinos who knows the rhinos better than anyone else. So the population of rhinos in the Kunene is one of the last free roaming rhino populations. So all over the world, that's the only place where you find free roaming rhinos. Not in a park, nowhere else, between communities. And it's also the largest population to persist on formerly unprotected land. So it's communal land, there is really no protection. You know, parks are fenced off and it's electrified and it's patrolled 24/7 and things like that. But this here is a different case. And they survived in a very extremely arid habitat. So we get less than 100 millimeters of rain. These days, even less than 20 millimeters of rain. But they still survive. You see how round they are. And they are monitored by Africa's longest running rhino conservation organization, which is Save the Rhino Trust. Conservation context in the Northwest. We're covering an area of about 25,000 square kilometers, so it's that area. Very low human population because it's a desert. It's mostly deserty area here. So people can really, I mean, there is some people here, but here there is no way that people can actually farm. We do have two concessions, which is Palambach, that most of you know, and Edendega. I think Tim knows Palambach very well now these days, because he has been working from Palambach to the coast on food. Yeah. And then we do have now 5 ethnic groups in that area. Before we had only 2, and then 3, and now it's 5. It's the Himbas, the Hereros, the Damaranama, the Rimfasmak, and the Ovambos also moved in and make business there. And it's actually where this whole poaching story have started with them there. We do have 5 main NGOs, Save the Rhino Trust, IRDNC, NNF, TOSCO, the Lion Rangers project. So NGOs also grow in the area. And then 13 conservancies. So these 13 are only rhino custodian conservancies. But overall, we had something like 82 conservancies all over here in this area. So can somebody tell me what's a conservancy? So a conservancy is a piece of land, for instance, like Dora, or let's say Doro Navas. There is the borders of Doro Navas. So all the people that live in this area come together, and first of all, the government actually initiated a program where they give ownership of all the natural resources and wildlife to the communities. And now, with that, they must form a conservancy so that some people are not excluded and others included, and others can't benefit and others can benefit. So they have to come together, agree, have a management plan, and register. And then the government will gazette them, and they are a recognized conservancy. When they started actually in the late 90s, just after independence, the idea was actually right from before independence. The then officials that was in the government actually started thinking of solving this problem that the government is always guilty of elephants killing people, elephants feeding on people's crops, and lions killing goats and stuff like that. So the government actually decided, let's give the communities the right to benefit from those, and it's their own property. Let them have it so that they can solve the problems for themselves. So, and I mean, what have I done now? Oh, okay, sorry. So this is now the conservancies, and they had their own conservancy committees. They had a chairman, a chairperson, which is running the whole process, and we mostly do with WWF and those people, we do game counts for all the conservancies, and then the government is putting aside quotas for them, for hunting, trophy hunting, live sales, whatever. We have been thinking so far that we also use mules now. First we used camels, and then it was donkeys, and now it's mules for rhino patrolling. So these guys will usually, they had a camp where they stay, but they will put the mules on a horse box, and they will take them out from an area into another area. Sorry. And then they will take them into another area where they will actually camp for days, usually 21 days, and they will be patrolling with the mules. So because we don't really use vehicles anymore after the big poaching, we have changed our strategy of working, because the poachers know if we are moving around with vehicles where we are. So even the teams got dropped off in the field, and they stayed there for 21 days and do patrolling. Every morning going out, finding rhinos, filling the ID forms, and they know what they have to do. So it has become more practical now for the guys. And at night, usually in the afternoons, they will go up on the high mountains there. They will go up on the mountains there, and they will check the area from there until it's dark, and then they will go back to the camps. And they've got fly camps. They stay there for 21 days. We supply them with food and resupply them with water and firewood. The other new enterprises was tourism. Because the conservancies now, like now, where we are now, the government is busy renewing the conservancy custodian agreements. So rhinos belongs to the government strictly, but user rights for tourism and stuff like this I mean, the conservancies do have the right, but now they have to sign an agreement with the government that say, we are responsible for these rhinos that are in our area. Rhinos don't know borders, so they walk everywhere. But I mean, as long as it is in your area, and as long as you can benefit from them, it's a good thing. So that's the one reason why we had now, sorry. That's the one reason why we had now conservancy rhino rangers also. SRT actually, Save the Rhino Trust, employed about 40 trackers. But our aim is not to employ as much trackers as we can. We want to give the opportunity to the community. So through this Rhino Ranger program, each custodian conservancy must or has recruit 2 Rhino Rangers in the beginning. So there could only be 27 by now, but they are about 67 now. So, I mean, it helps quite a lot. It's more boots on the ground. And I believe in boots on the ground. I mean, technology is good. Cameras is good. Everything is good. But I want the guys to see the rhinos and come and tell me, I have seen Peda and Philip and Boo, and they're in very good conditions. And they have enough food. Or although there is no food, they have moved to another area. So that you can't really tell with a camera trap. So I believe in boots on the ground, walking behind the rhinos. We use this tool that it's a smart, it's like a cell phone, but we had a smart, it's a smart device, but it's the same like a cell phone. And so the guys use it for going out in the field. So what we want, what information we want from the field is what we put in here. So the patrol, the patrol, what type of a patrol is it? Is it vehicles or foot patrol? Was the guys armed or not? And everything that we want, where did they go from? What is their mandate when they went out? And who employed them? Leader, who is the leader? So this is all the information. Plus, if they found a rhino, if they found a carcass, if they found a spring, they have to report every single finding that's in there. And for the 21 days that they're going out, they just put information in. And after 21 days, when they're back in camp, this information will be downloaded on the data on the computer and will be fed into the database. And if you want to put in a query, you just put a query in and press one button, and then you have got what you want. So, and it's very easy to write reports from this. In other areas where they have got very strong and good cell phone network, the guys actually can do the downloading every day. But with us, it's a bit difficult. We can't really do that. The award ceremony is we honoring those who keep an eye on Namibia's free roaming rhinos, which is the Save the Rhino guys and also the Rhino Rangers. And there are different ways of doing this. Every year, like it will be now next month, we will have an award ceremony where guys will be getting awards for foot kilometers, the longest foot kilometers, the best photo of the year, so many days in the field, more days in the field. So each will count and each guy will get a award for that. So the guy who walks the most kilometers will get nice, high-tech, expensive boots. And the one that looks after his equipment, like the smart device, will get a nice smart phone. So that's how we do it. And this is actually to boost the guys, actually to give the guys courage to do the work. And I'm sure our people are really committed and they can do it. They can do it. When we go out to the field, because communities are very important, as we said, we do farm visits. We call it hearts and minds. So you will be going to the people, you don't just go past them, you go to them, sit there with them, take your tea and coffee aid that you take on patrol, make coffee, talk to them, be nice with them, drink, and then you say bye, and then you go. And these people, they are the eyes and the ears on the ground. And I can tell you that I'm here, my cell phone is quiet. But when I'm back home, it rings every 10 minutes. They don't trust any more people in their area. So if there is a vehicle coming, they will call me and say, there's a 4x4 vehicle with 4 guys. They say they're buying goats, but we don't trust them. We don't think it's goats. We think they want to poach our rhinos. So they are very, very, very much switched on. With the youth also, we had the rhino music. I mean, we have so many rhino songs now that the musicians actually play for us, and we use them for awareness. And also the rhino hero jackets. So if you work for 5 years, you qualified for a jacket with 1 stripe. If you are there for 10 years, it's 2 stripes. 15, it's 3. So it goes on like that. Mine has got 6 now. Yeah. And also the Rhino Friend pledges for people. I mean, all these things is just to boost the morale of the people and also make the communities to feel that they are part of the conservation and not cut out. We do have soccer leagues. We had first we start with the boys soccer league, and now we had also a girls soccer league. The one that we are now having has been funded by IRF, Marcus, and they're really doing well. And each conservancy, the 3 conservancies do have each one a team, and they play every weekend. Like Saturday, they will be playing now another game. So, and on the end of the year, at the end of the year, they will play finals, and the winners will get a big award. So it really works well, and I think those are the future leaders of conservation. So we have to keep them away and also let them do things. Also, what we think is, I have been in contact with Joe know her very well, the deputy director from Etosha. For me, rhinos are just rhinos wherever they are. And if it comes to protection, we have to protect them. You have seen just now what Sam was saying, rhinos in Namibia, rhinos in South Africa, and the numbers are dropping in Africa. So we have to build up on that numbers. Therefore, I think I think it's also our responsibility to look after Etosha from the outside. It's a national park, so we can't really work inside, but we can work from the outside, and it's from the outside where the communities are. So mobilize those communities, make them understand the importance of the rhinos, the value of the rhinos, and train them, and we can have rhino rangers that can walk around the park to stop poachers from going in, because poachers coming in from outside. And that's where Kruger Park is actually been hammered. The same like us, but with us, it's a little bit better because we do have already people. Kaurong National Park is in the east, northeast, not northeast, but east, actually. Bushman land, they do have rhinos there. We have put some rhinos in there, and we have also moved to there because that's also commercial land, and it's our responsibility to also look after those rhinos. We are pleased that with our results and the work that we are doing, but I think we still have so much good work to do for the future and the future generation. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you, Simson. We could talk about any of these different people and amazing projects all night. But I do want to just squeeze in a quick question for the panel before we have to end. So, we've heard about the successes and the challenges of the different species in the different countries around the world in 2024. I guess for all the panelists, hearing about the situation in Indonesia, what do we think are the key lessons that we can share from other range states for people working in Indonesia for the benefit of Javan and Sumatran rhinos? Sam, I know you're under tight time pressure. Maybe we could start with handing over to you.
So it's a very important question, that, and I think quite often we do not share enough lessons with each other. I think a lot of the conditions that, of course, those 4 insights that we have highlighted in the presentation may not necessarily be directly transferable, but I think the partnership components are a really important element. That partnership is not necessarily, quite often, we will have a partnership between somebody that's funding it and the government or something, but the way that Simson has highlighted for us some of that examples that happen when the partnership involves the local people at a very intense level. And I think Inov has highlighted some of that already, but that's probably for me the biggest insight that we have to deal with in terms of the lessons that we can learn. Obviously, the expectations of people across different continents may differ substantially, and it's that local understanding, having somebody like Inov on the ground that actually direct and can help you getting through these things. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Sam. Simson, maybe I could put that same question to you, thinking about your lessons for Indonesia.
I think my lessons also it will be the same partnership, but most importantly, the communities that's living direct there around the parks and in the parks. Those are the people that you need to target and have to explain or show the value of the rhinos and also benefits, because people will help if they can see the benefits, like in our case with tourism. Whatever money is coming in now from tourism, those conservancies do have joint ventures with the tourist companies, and they get a share of that money. So for instance, like now, we had a big fight in Namibia between mining and tourism. But I had the blessing of one of the ministers that I understand yesterday that said, actually, we have been proven that environmental or tourism can bring money to communities, but not mining. Mining is enriching certain people, but not the communities. But from tourism, I mean, it has been shown already that there is money that can go to the communities. And therefore, partnership is very important. And I think on the African Rhino Specialist Group level, I think we should push for that there is more partnership between the continents, like Indonesia, like ourselves. Although, I mean, it's different areas of working, but still we're doing the same thing. We're looking after the same rhinos. We protect the same rhinos.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Simson. Powerful stuff. Inov, I don't know whether you have any reflections on that. We're getting quite a lot of questions from people online. Really keen to hear more about the specific actions that are taking place for Indonesian rhinos and particularly the Javans. I don't know if you have any points that you'd like to share with us on future plans and priorities, please.
Sure. I think with the situation right now, first of all, I would like to say this. Thank you so much, Simson and then Sam. That is true. The partnership, collaboration is important to help to bring this species from the extinction. So the priority now that we have to do, first, the protection is number one, because we know less than 100, let's say 100, both of the population right now need a protection. The protection itself will not work without supporting from many stakeholders, government, NGO, donor, and then also the community should be in the working together in the same position to protect this species. For the giraffe and for the Sumatran rhino itself, we will try now to make. Actually, we started from the 2019 with the IUC and with the global institution right now. At the time, we call the emergency action plan for the Sumatran rhino. we want to consolidate the rest of the space, the individual that we have right now, consolidate, bring it to the breeding center, breed them, and then we will release them someday to the habitat. And then for the now for the Smotan rhino, we have the Smotan rhino in Waikambas. Nowadays we have been finished to make the Smotan rhino sanctuary in northern Sumatra, in Aceh, and then soon we will capture some individual Smotan rhino and then bring it to the location, to that facility. And then in the Borneo, one rhino is already in the facility right now, and then we will capture more Sumatran rhino that probably still exists in the Borneo. So I think, Joe, that this protection, breeding, and then working with the community, and then prepare the restoration for the next habitat, for the next home for the Javan and Sumatran rhino is the priority that we will conduct. Even though this is also have the idea, probably not this year or until 5 years, we want to translocate Javan rhino in some location because we don't want to put all the egg in one basket. We want to put to the another basket because the threat for the Ujung Kulon National Park, putting on the one location, the inbreeding depression will be there, and then genetic problem also happen. So by translocate that, we learn from the African, then African rhino, then we learn from the Indian and greater one-horned rhino. This is the successful story, how the translocate from the one big population to the another habitat, make the successful story. We will try to learn from the experience. Back to you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you so much, Inov. It's so interesting to hear you build on the points that Sam and Simson are making. But also, if we look back to the stories of the recovery of the other species, of the white rhino, black rhino, greater one-horn, there are so many lessons there, and those successful plans have combined all of those different elements. So, you know, we've shown before with the other species that it's important not to give up hope, that there is that rhinos are amazing, and if you leave them in a safe place with good food, they will get on with it. And I think exciting times with the new Indonesian government coming into power next month, and a real opportunity for them in terms of making their mark on conservation.
Sure.
So I do apologize to the guests joining us online. I'm aware we've slightly run over. We just had so many exciting stories to share with you. We really appreciate your time. We're so sorry we didn't get to all of your questions, but we have made a note of them, and we will come back to them in future webinars. Lots of you always ask how you can help save rhinos. Anyone can be a rhino champion. Tell their story, share the good news, make people aware of the challenges, and do what you can to support where you can. Thank you very much indeed from all of us. Thanks. Thank you. I know we have a lot of Simson fans in the room, so if anyone has any quick last questions for Simson from our special guests before we head into mingling. Oh, I think Ness was first at the back and then Tim.